The Arctic is in grave danger, and it's not just from melting ice caps. A growing number of scientists are sounding the alarm about a controversial approach to combating climate change: geoengineering the polar regions. While the idea of artificially cooling the planet might sound like a quick fix, experts warn it could be a dangerous distraction from the real solution: ditching fossil fuels. Imagine trying to fix a leaky roof by spraying it with a temporary sealant instead of actually repairing the damage. That's essentially what some propose to do with the Arctic and Antarctic. Techniques like artificially thickening sea ice or releasing reflective particles into the atmosphere are being touted as potential tools to combat global warming. But here's where it gets controversial. More than 40 polar researchers argue these methods are not only risky, but also unlikely to work. Geoengineering, the deliberate manipulation of Earth's climate system, is one of the most debated topics in climate science. While some methods, like planting trees to absorb carbon dioxide, are widely accepted as part of net zero efforts, others are far more radical. Net zero, by the way, is the goal of balancing greenhouse gas emissions with their removal from the atmosphere, the only proven way to limit global warming. But what if we could just reflect sunlight back into space? That's the idea behind one geoengineering proposal. But critics say it's like treating a fulver with ice packs instead of addressing the underlying infection. Martin Siegert, a professor of geosciences at the University of Exeter, points out that such approaches only deal with the symptoms of climate change, not its root causes. Supporters argue that exploring these techniques could buy us time as temperatures continue to rise, bringing devastating impacts to people and ecosystems worldwide. However, opponents counter that the risks, especially to the fragile polar regions, are simply too great. And this is the part most people miss. The potential for unintended consequences, like disrupting global weather patterns, is enormous. A recent assessment published in Frontiers in Science reviewed 5 of the most discussed polar geoengineering ideas. The verdict? None of them meet basic feasibility or safety criteria. Take, for example, the proposal to release reflective aerosols into the atmosphere. While it might sound like science fiction, it's already fueling conspiracy theories online, with some falsely claiming that airplane condensation trails are evidence of secret geoengineering projects. But beyond the conspiracy theories, there are legitimate concerns. Who gets to decide whether to deploy these techniques? In regions like the Arctic and Antarctic, where governance is complex, unilateral action could escalate geopolitical tensions. Valérie Masson-Motte, a senior scientist at the Université Paris-Saclay, warns that such moves could create international conflicts. Another issue is practicality. Even if some of these ideas are theoretically possible, the cost and time required to implement them on a large scale make them highly unlikely to make a meaningful difference. For instance, one proposal to thicken Arctic sea ice by pumping seawater would require an estimated 10 million pumps to cover just 10% of the region. That's a staggering logistical challenge. And here's the real kicker. These projects could create the illusion that we don't need to reduce our carbon emissions. As Prof. Siegert puts it, promoting geoengineering as a solution could distract from the urgent need to decarbonize. It's like telling someone they can keep smoking because there's a magic pill to cure lung cancer, except the pill doesn't exist. Even proponents of geoengineering research admit it's at best a supplement to net zero, not a replacement. Sean Fitzgerald, director of the University of Cambridge's Centre for Climate Repair, emphasizes that reducing emissions must come first. Without it, he says, almost any other effort is futile. While the assessment raises valid concerns, Fitzgerald argues that we need to weigh these against the risks of unchecked climate change. He acknowledges that some geoengineering ideas might turn out to be bonkers, but believes more research is needed to make informed decisions. The UK government has allocated nearly £60 million for such research, though it claims no plans to deploy these techniques. However, the authors of the assessment remain skeptical, viewing these projects as unrealistic distractions from the urgent work of decarbonization and polar research. As Prof. Siegert puts it, some truths are self-evident. These ideas are simply not viable. So, What do you think? Is geoengineering a risky gamble or a necessary lifeline? Could it complement our efforts to combat climate change? Or is it a dangerous distraction? Let us know in the comments. This debate is far from over.